The president has taken this very seriously. White House defends East Palestine response, but still won't say if president will visit, and says attacks on Pete Buttigieg taking 3 weeks to tour site are in bad faith and oppos. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said GOP attacks on Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg are political stunts and claimed that Trump-era Secretary Elaine Chao never fell under these kinds of attacks. The press secretary refused to provide any insight on whether President Biden had given any consideration himself to visiting the Ohio border town where a Norfolk Southern train derailed and spilled toxic chemicals. She insisted that Americans should feel at ease with the Biden administration's response to the spill that prompted 5,000 to evacuate, and insisted Biden took the matter seriously. I want to be very clear here. I don't have anything to share on a presidential visit at this time or anything to announce, Jean-Pierre said as reporters continued to press her on whether the president would take a trip to Ohio after returning from Poland and Ukraine. 1 day earlier, former President Trump paid a visit to East Palestine, bearing food and water for residents and first responders in what analysts deemed a calculated political play ahead of the 2024 bloodbath presidential race. CNN's Jeremy Diamond asked Jean-Pierre, "I'm struggling to understand why the president wouldn't go to East Palestine. Does it simply not meet the bar for a presidential visit? There's no reason to struggle, I don't think, on this question. When you look at how the federal agencies have responded from day one," Jean-Pierre shot back, noting EPA first responders and investigators had been on the ground since 2 a.m. on February 4. Buttigieg meanwhile paid a visit to the town on the Ohio-Pennsylvania border on Thursday, 20 days after the spill on February 3. Asked if he had made a mistake by not visiting sooner, Buttigieg said, "What I tried to do was balance two things: my desire to be involved and engaged and on the ground, which is how I am generally wired to act, and my desire to follow the norm of transportation secretaries." EPA Administrator Michael Regan first visited the site last Thursday and again this Tuesday. "There's been a lot of bad faith attacks on Secretary Buttigieg. If you remember Elaine Chao," Jean-Pierre said, referring to Chao as the EPA head before a reporter corrected her that Chao was Transportation Secretary. When there were these types of chemical spills, nobody was calling for her to be fired. Meanwhile, federal safety investigators said in a report Thursday the Norfolk Southern train that derailed did not receive a critical warning about an overheated axle before dozens of its cars went off tracks. Ohio Republican Lieutenant Governor John Husted told CNN ahead of the report's release that its findings had the potential to form the basis of a criminal referral from the state. He also said railroad company Norfolk Southern should temporarily relocate people who continue to feel unsafe, or even consider buying their property. In further remarks, Buttigieg told reporters in Ohio that he would think about whether he had waited too long to respond to the crash. "I'll do some thinking about whether I got that balance right, but I think the most important thing is first of all making sure the residents here have what they need," said the transportation secretary. Buttigieg also blamed the Trump administration and rail companies for undermining safety regulations he says led to the crash. "One thing Trump, can do is express support for reversing the deregulation that happened on his watch. I heard him say he had nothing to do with it, even though it was in his administration." Jean-Pierre said Republicans are all of a sudden, they are interested in the safety of East Palestine. For years they have been in lockstep with the rail lobby. But Buttigieg's transportation department has failed to bring the e-brake safety regulation he's referred to back. And though the Trump administration did roll back a regulation requiring modern braking systems on some trains, the Obama administration had already hollowed out that rule so much so that the modern braking systems would not have been required on the train that derailed in East Palestine. The 2015 Obama-era rule required trains carrying crude oil and some other chemicals to use electronically controlled pneumatic (ECP) brakes, but left out many other hazardous chemicals after industry pressure. Then in 2017, Trump's Transportation Department under Secretary Elaine Chao rolled back the ECP brake rule even further. The Department of Transportation's Pipelines and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, PHMSA, said at the time that the safety benefits do not exceed the associated costs and were not economically justified. Norfolk Southern previously touted the technology as having the potential to reduce train stopping distances by as much as 60% over conventional air brake systems. Earlier this week, before he announced the Thursday visit, a reporter from the Daily Caller confronted him in the street. He confirmed he would be going, and then tried to take a photo of the journalist Jenny Tarr while he was walking around Washington, D.C. with his husband Chasen. "Well, I'd refer you to about a dozen interviews I've given today, and if you'd like to arrange a conversation, make sure to reach out to our press office," Buttigieg replied. He indicated he wasn't going to have that conversation with you just walking down the street here. "You don't have a message for them?" the reporter asked, as the two walked and talked near the Capitol. "I do, and I've shared it with the press many times today, and I refer you to those comments," Buttigieg responded. When the reporter pressed again, he declined, saying, "No, I'm going to refer you to the comments I made to the press because right now I'm taking some personal time and I'm walking down the street." She asked whether he would visit East Palestine, something he had revealed on ABC's Good Morning America earlier Tuesday. After pausing, Buttigieg allowed "Yep, I'm going," but declined to give a time frame. Then Buttigieg, who often represents the administration in combative interviews on Fox News and with other outlets, asked the reporter, "Can I get a photo of you?" The reporter agreed. She later posted video of the encounter on Twitter. On Wednesday, Trump told residents of East Palestine they are victims of betrayal by the Biden administration and claimed his visit had finally sparked them to act. The former president greeted crowds and brought in thousands of bottles of his own water, cleaning supplies and canned food. He then stopped at a local McDonald's where he ordered Big Macs for first responders and members of his team, and handed out signed MAGA hats to the customers. "I know this menu better than you do. I probably know it better than anybody in here," he told the server, and demanded they knock it out fast so he could eat it on the plane.